Welcome guys. I want to do an update video about the new Gen 4 XM18s and XM24s. When I was at the USN show and I was talking to Mr. Hinderer's main distribution guy, Rob, he was telling me about the main change is this. Here's the old one, my beater. You can see that screw right there serves as for that pin, which serves as what stops the blade when closed, you see? What they've done and changed for the Gen 4 is they've moved it to there. So no longer is it there screwed in, it's now back there, and now that serves as it. And what that allows now, they were saying, is it doesn't really change anything other than now they have more options on blade profiles. They can cut this further back, or they can not even have this. They have some option now as to how they want to make more interesting blade grinds. That's the main difference. Now the second difference, obviously, you see here, these are two I just picked up. Mr. Hinderer's watching and stuff. You know, I hope he understands. I really value his knife. I really admire his knife, and he knows. I've talked to him. It's just that it's hard to get his stuff. For dealers, you have a wait list of over a year, and you have no real estimated time. It's easy enough to get a hold of his pens and other things to sell, but to actually get a direct hold of his knives is very challenging. So even I, as a dealer, have to purchase these, meaning I'm the third person to handle these. So understand that I'm doing my best. But here we have the new Gen 4s. If you see, now I don't think all the Gen 4s will be like this, but these are an S35 VN, and they have a slicer grind. So just for these two, I can say that's one difference. The grind is different. In terms of cutting capability, you can imagine what it can and cannot do, the difference. Let's see, the actual cutting performance. You know, this is a Mr. Hinderer's edge that he gets, he makes direct. So that's that. Good. Now this is the most awesome change, and for this, everyone's gonna be very happy. Okay. Okay. Before that, first let me mention that these slicer grinds, that tip gets a little bit close to not really catching on it, but I want to mention this. At a smaller size, at a 3.5 inch blade, okay, for most people, I want to mention that this size, you want like a flipper. In my opinion, I do like it. I think that at the 3.5 inch mark, you know, it's smaller to handle. I mean, it's not a small knife. For most people, 3.5 inches is fine. That's the perfect EC size. For me, 3.7 up to 4.5, you know, is what I prefer. But I mean, you know, you got this, and that really does serve a function. It really does help, especially if you are using this in some sort of more perhaps rescue applications. Yeah, I can understand why you'd want that. But the one thing has always been that flipper sticking out. You know, it's in your pocket, tip down or tip up, you see, and that's rubbing into that corner pocket. The detent of the Hinderer has always been bad. So for me then, the XM24, I love the non-flipper version, because the XM24 is larger, you got more handle area to work with, so it's less chance of you injuring yourself, you know. But it removes that flipper, so it kind of stays more compact in a nice package that you can't accidentally bump open. So it's a little more, for me, like you could climb with it, you could run with it, you could be outdoors with it more, you know. I honestly, really, truly mean it that I like the XM24 non-flipper. May not be the looks, but the function of it. Okay, I like the flipper look more. Now, the thing that was always a flaw was the detent. Now here's mine. You can see it's centered. Unfortunately, I have blue lube in here. So Teflon washers, you know, as I learn more about them, I want to mention that Teflon washers really can kind of go two directions. They can go from kind of sticky, spongy to where you can kind of feel them, as they kind of provide a sort of, kind of like how I say, a layman's way of saying this, similar to like an O-ring in a flashlight that you twist. You know, it doesn't need lubrication to work. But I mean, with lubrication, Teflon really glides. Now that depends. I'll show you this for example. For example, on my Warren Thomas that I just got in, here's a little sneak preview. This pivot, you know, I've put blue lube in it, and usually blue lube will smooth everything out. And on most of the Warren Thomas ones, blue lube does. On the XM18s before, I was telling people you might want to consider, you over tighten it and you can't flick it open very easily, and you end up with your blade uncentered. So I told people, maybe you want to use something like remote control Teflon oil, just really thick, gunky stuff that's like almost like grainy. But regardless, you see that detent? People always say it's horrible. It is. If anything, this knife is strong for so many reasons, which I'll go over real fast again after this. But it is a horrible detent, and for me that makes it kind of dangerous. You know, it makes it kind of, you know, if it's tip up and it's up against the corner side of your pocket, then it's not so bad. And if it doesn't have flipper, it should kind of stay. The pocket should push it closed. But almost every other way, it just gets kind of risky. Whatever Hinderer was reasoning for before, you know, I think it was always a mistake. It really was. You could always shake it open. I mean, this detent is really strong, but you can still shake it open. People complain about striders in their lockup. Mel has her strider right now, and I don't have mine because it's with tough. But you can see, people would always complain, if you remember, that the blade tang of a strider, you know, would always develop lock rock. And what happens is, let me go ahead and do a little diagram to show what I'm talking about. Here, now this is silly, but see if you follow me here. A strider blade tang, the lock bevel, meaning that part that the lock bar, the frame lock bar touches, is kind of more like this. You know, you get your lock up, you buy it, and your lock bar is touching somewhere around here, okay? It starts to wear out and starts to go over here. Once it's worn out a little bit too far, because you know it's breaking in and stuff, you know, if you get one that starts a little bit too late, it'll end up over here. And you can see what happens. There's a sharp, sudden curve over that then, you know, obviously that lock bar can't really touch, kind of just keeps sliding. And then it slides till it hits right here, and then it locks. It doesn't fail. While on the Hinderer, you have more like this. And you have this on my Warren Thomas knife also. You know, it's the same thing. It's not really a quick curve. It's more like a general slope. And that lasts better. And depending on how it's all created, what I've noticed is it means the lock bar can go in too far instead. When it comes time to disengage or not, it'll slide inward. And if you remember from my testing, that's what happened to the old XM18, this one right here. And it happens to this. And it happens for a combination of reasons, and I will address that when I review this knife. But it's sort of like a give and take, because it lasts really long. You know, it lasts for a long time, even under heavy use like this one. But it does, instead of, how you say, like on the strider, you know, slip out and then catch. It kind of, because it's not very, there's not much of a curve here to stop it from going inward, it goes too far inward and can get jammed in there. You know, and the lock bar can move all the way over here. I want you guys to understand that you see they have different purposes in mind. And for that strider lockup does deserve some appreciation, because that is built, meaning when you use your knife hard, you know, there's always a little bit of movement and give. And the strider lock bar won't ever go all the way inward, you know, because of that quick sudden slope. And that's something, you know, you appreciate. You start to realize when you're using it hard, that after I've used these knives hard, including my Warren Thomas, you notice that, man, that when it slides inward, sure, it's not going to disengage, but it jams. You got to put something in there to unjam it. Perhaps use like I said, I usually end up sticking this piece right here in there and unjamming it. Both are good, you know, both are fine. I mean, with this way that you see on these knives, you're going to end up with a knife that doesn't have any blade play, and if you use it hard, it's going to jam, but it's going to last a long time. You go for the strider lockup, you know, you're going to have a knife that doesn't jam, which is important, and it's not going to fail, but, you know, if it wears out too fast, you're going to have that lock bar slide, and that's where you're going to have that lock rock. Every time you push on the blade tang, it goes like that until it catches. And that's why you hear a lot of people, once they fix their striders, they send them in, and strider puts that stop pin on there, it makes the lockup early again, and then it's good again, because it's touching this area. So that makes sense. Now, here's the main difference. Okay, awesome. This is awesome. First of all, I still have one of these on my website. I'll sell it to you for $7.50. Okay, that is a good deal. Okay, that's the old black-handled XM18 non-flipper. Now that I got these, this is the Gen 4 one. Okay, what's the difference? Well, besides that, this being a slicer grinder makes it a little more light, and you know, and that little pokey thing. This is the difference. I was like, yes! I was like, oh man, Hinderer finally fixed it. I don't know if it's all of the Hinderer XMs, the new ones, but the XM24 and the XM18, at least the three that I have, the 124 and these two, they don't have detent problems. So that's all really I have to say about that. That is just, it's finally perfect. The knife is perfect. I have zero faults to hit it. It has nothing wrong with it. It is an awesome knife now in every single way. You can see that now it's not as though, oh, you can see I got it. But it takes a little more conscious effort. Bam. That's that. Those are the new Hinderer XM18s. I got an XM24 in, gonna get another one in because now their detents are solid. Like I said, XM24, I don't think you need a flipper. I prefer non because then it's more, how do you say, it's more solid in place. You know, it's not gonna, it doesn't, you know, cause any issues. You don't have to worry about it. And this one, the XM18s, a little bit smaller. That flipper is a little bit more important because of the smaller handle size. Definitely great. It is great. I might keep one. I might keep one. And one more last thing to say. I hope if you're watching this, Mr. Hinderer, that you're not upset. You guys also, I want you to know that, like, if I can get a XM for the actual dealer price, then I don't have to mark it up much. But at the same time, if there's demand and I want one and other people want one, and I have to go find it. If I can find it, but I have to pay high, then I have to sell for high. And so I hope, you know, let me know. I'm going to actually call Hinderer up later. I want to make sure if he's upset with that, if you guys are upset with that. I mean, that really is just kind of like supply and demand, in my opinion. Like, that is, someone wants it. I mean, you know, that's just normal. That's just how, there's like a lifeline that just kind of, that's how it works. But I understand, I'm trying to be fair. And then last thing also to mention is, you check this out, a little preview, eye candy. On any Warren Thomas knife, I have some on posted that are satin finished. I have them because if you want it to be in his, and I wanted to get this term out ahead of time, his pattern, that blue anodized look, he calls it urban camo. That's exactly his words, not alien skin, urban camo finish. That blue pattern. So, like, for example, this is satin finish, and that's kind of, I guess, a little bit less common. If you see it on my website, like the carbon fiber ones, and as I get more in, if it's satin finish and you want it to be blue, anodized, you can tell me, pay me for the shipping, and I can send it to Mr. Thomas, and he'll turn it blue or turn it orange. And that's just something that, you know, I really appreciate he's just willing to do for me. In my following video, I talk about some of the unique things about the Neptune knife versions of the Warren Thomas folders and knives. Thank you.